I'ma trust the whole damn process for the record till we breaking records. Reminisce about the past days, now we rise and fly. Journeys to the sky, azimuth inside my grip, always know the way now. Beauty fill my days now, take it day by day. Sound couldn't be prouder, cause you know we alive. Hey.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to In Process, Azimuth Theatre's podcast, highlighting and celebrating the community that we have here in our town. Today, we'd like to welcome my special guest, Bret Jacobs. Hi, Bret.
Well, hello.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say welcome. Thanks for being on the show. Now, you're here as part of the first edition of the ASMAP program, or the Azimuth Theatre Apprenticeship and Mentorship program, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the ASMAP program from your point of view?
From my point of view, oh dear. So I am not that proficient with computers, so this is just an overall journey with me in just learning to do simple tasks. So like of course I've dabbled a little bit with like Google Suite, but not as much as I would like to. So from at least what we're doing at the moment, it's a lot more online learning stuff, which I am also trying to get accustomed to. I'm more of an in-person type of learner as opposed to online. So yeah, but however, I feel like I'm getting a little bit of the hang of it. Both Morgan and Sue have been very supportive and very like nurturing when it comes to me learning the little computer tricks and stuff. So that's very helpful. I actually made this little joke. I'm like, oh, I'm going to give my nickname Tech Issue Bret. But like I said, I'm starting to become more proficient with it slowly. And yeah. I do mean slowly. So yeah, but I find that like all walks of life, this journey is just starting, and I'll get more familiar with it the more I use it. Like,
totally. Now, you were talking a little bit about your journey. Can you give us a bit of your journey up until now? What brought you to theater? What brought you to apply for the ASMAP program? Whatever you want to share.
Okay. So like my initial journey to like theater training or just performing, well, maybe I should start with just go from theater. Because I've always loved singing. So even when I was younger, I would love to sing around the house and compete in talent shows. But I never really thought of theater as something I'd enjoy until I was probably a preteen. And that I just was watching a lot of like films and TV shows. I grew up in a small native community that doesn't really have access to live theater. And I didn't really go watch any shows in like the urban areas like Edmonton, except for when I was in my high school drama club. And I realized as a person, not only just as a performer, that I love storytelling. And that's kind of what propelled me to say to myself, I would like to tell stories, if not by creating them in as a book, but being a character on stage. So when I was in high school, one of my dear friends, and I consider her my first mentor. Her name is Jacelyn Logan. She started the drama club at the very small Indigenous school in Calling Lake. And there was about a dozen or so kids. And that went on for about 3 years, up until I was in grade 11. And I was in there every single year helping to like create and even doing choreography for certain numbers if need be. I'm not a trained dancer, but I know how to move. I know how to dance party style too. So I put those together and came up with little routines. So that's sort of where my journey started, in that drama club. And it was there where my mentor / friend Jacelyn, she said, well, you should maybe consider doing more with that, like doing that into post-secondary. Initially, I wasn't very on set because I didn't think I would, you know, break through
Mhm.
because of where I lived too. And there wasn't very much Indigenous representation at that time. So I didn't feel as confident at that time.
Mhm.
So I graduated high school. I spent a year at a First Nations college just in open studies, and I took about 2 years off. Then I thought I should maybe try this, like at least audition to a program. And I did. I auditioned to Red Deer College's now, I believe, defunct theater performance and creation program twice. I did not get in the first time, but the second time I did. And from there on, it was just a big journey of self-discovery within myself, like personal as well.
Mhm.
And from that point on, I mean, that was my learning journey where I started to become more accustomed to learning about theater and certain bits of movement. I thought theater was just acting before I went there. Oh, heck no.
Yeah.
And it's all one of the most thing that I found very, very helpful is that in order to be an artist and all, you have to discover yourself first. And I wasn't fully there yet when I started.
Mhm. Yeah, there's something so interesting about theater school where it's like every morning you show up and they're like, "Hi, you're gonna confront yourself. It's 9 a.m. Welcome," you know? Like,
It's like, can I just get a moment, please? I mean, gee, you just had me confront myself last night. I am tired, all right?
I feel that. I totally get that. And I didn't really expect it to be such explorative work about yourself. I thought, oh, you're acting, you're doing other people, but like it really is like so important to start with yourself, you know? What was your favorite part of RDC?
Well, I like the whole, I guess that was the whole part, was discovering within myself because I was a very private person, although I'm as extroverted, well, not super extroverted, but nowadays I'm very extroverted and have a certain energy or way I perceive myself. I was so shy and so quiet. I had not come out of my shell at that time. And it's just because my comfort level being in such a different place in, well, for one thing, being around like the majority of non-Indigenous people is very jarring for being for like the other side of my life being around surrounded by nothing but Indigenous people. It was weird because not weird, but a little jarring when it comes to, I guess, social conditioning in small Indigenous communities, especially where there's barely any non-Indigenous people. It can be very jarring and sort of like a trusting issue because there's such a perceived notion in an Indigenous community nowadays, especially where non-Indigenous people are not to be really be trusted
Mhm.
because of the colonial aspects of what other like Europeans and such did during, colonization. So like I can say a little personal tidbit, an example. My father is not very trustworthy with non-Indigenous people. At least he always had a guard up when it came to dealing with non-Indigenous people.
Mm-hmm. And like that's all kind of like that stuff that gets passed through generations. So, like that distress comes from somewhere. You were mentioning that up until kind of high school, you also didn't really come out to like the urban cities to watch some theater. Do you remember the first piece of theater that really like inspired you and made you want to like look at this as a career?
I do not remember the show, but one of our field trips for the drama club, which we had saved up a decent amount of money with bake sales and other ventures, was we got to see a dinner theater at Jubilations. So just the idea of like being like the character service as well were so like fun to watch. And also like mostly from what I tell or from when back then, the shows they did were mostly musicals. And because I'm a singer and I love to dance and, acting, I'm like, whoa, this could be really cool to get into.
You obviously have an affinity to musicals. It's something that, like, in the couple of interactions we've had, I very much noticed and enjoyed. Do you have a favorite musical?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't really have that. I guess I can say I got to see Mamma Mia live once, and that was pretty fun. Story wise, a little okay. Hairspray. I loved Hairspray and the music that comes from it.
Yeah.
I actually spent summer of 2008 just replaying that whole soundtrack just on my then CD player. Dating me, definitely, of like past decades. But I played that till the cows come home.
Oh.
I sang, well, not very well, but I think my favorite number was "You Can't Stop the Beat."
It's a good song. It's a hard song, especially because of the breathing in it. You're like, where do I breathe? I know you can't stop the beat, but can I take a breath?
No, I gotta take this beat, okay? Like, seriously.
Where do you find that now you find your inspiration for storytelling?
Well, I get ideas through just watching like bits of, I guess, programming. I deep dive into my own like mind of what I've experienced, and especially when it comes to certain stories I feel would be really, interesting to tell. So my, I guess, inspiration would be just from what I see and what I watch, and maybe if I'm inspired to create something. Like, well, I've had this idea for a long time, but I have kind of wanted to like, it's just the bare bones right now, but I kind of want to write a musical of like a battle of the boy bands with like a little bit of 12th Night sprinkled in. Like that speaks to me, like, especially because, well, I'm not that much of a boy band person, but when I was a kid, I used to love listening to Spice Girls and maybe a little bit of Backstreet Boys, but not as much Backstreet Boys because I was all about them spices. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
In the food, out the food, in the music, why not?
Everywhere, just spice it up.
Spice up your life. I actually, one small little tidbit about me, I do not usually listen to my own generation of what was considered popular music. I am like really far back. Like I jam out to even songs of Cher from like the 70s. I'm into disco. I didn't really discover that about myself until I went to school. So yeah.
Disco is just perfection. Like, it really is. I don't know. I know most people might hate it, but I find it so good.
I have some friends who are like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, okay, no need to come for me. I'm just enjoying being myself and enjoying my life. All right.
Anyways, I could talk just about disco now.
The In Process podcast is brought to you by the Canada Council for the Arts and Azimuth Theatre's Traversing the Azimuth Multimedia branch. It is our aim to continue to introduce and deepen the relationships between our community and the artists within it. To keep this podcast going, go to azimuththeatre.com/donate to help with the continuation of this podcast.
You're here with the ASMAP program. What are your hopes to get out of the program?
Well, the one thing I will share is, as many things do inspire me. I haven't had that much inspiration within the last few years. So one thing to do is what's keeping me afloat is I want to tell my stories, and I'm using this program as a way to drive myself to break through and tell these stories. I have a very personal story that I would love to have made, but if it's not adapted for theater, I can just put it on the back burner for whenever it's time.
Well, and what I think is so lovely about this program is that it's pretty self-driven in like what you want to explore, but it allows you to just be able to take the time out of your day, especially with all of us trying to survive. It's hard to like take time to be like, I'm going to sit and read, or I'm going to sit and write, you know, like all of these things that this program can allow you to just like dive into.
Yeah, totally. I mean, just there's a lot right now just because it's like bam, bam, bam. For me, I'm going back to like, okay, I haven't thought about this in a while. Okay, maybe I should think about this. Why aren't I thinking about this? Just, and by the way, with my own like student isms, I get very like, okay, this has to be done. This has to be done. This has to be done. Sort of like, I wouldn't say perfectionist because I am not perfect, and nor is anyone ever perfect. But I do kind of give myself a little bit of grief when I'm not doing what I feel I'm supposed to. But that I'm working on. I'm working on that just in general. So,
yeah. And I mean, you're right. Like nobody's perfect, but I do think that there is a level of perfectionism that comes from being an artist, where you want your stuff to be perfect, you know, in whatever way that means. But I feel like working with Morgan and Sue, you're gonna really be able to find inspiration and have that mentorship, and especially have people on your side who are there to be able to help you develop what you want to develop, you know, and develop into the artist you want to be.
yeah, totally. And as well as like, I don't know too many contacts in this industry, at least in the Edmonton area. So it's very helpful to like for networking and such. And I'm really game for that. I just want to like I said, I'm trying to drive and break through that and try to, you know, use this program as a platform to, I guess, flourish and, you know, come out of the cocoon and show my artistry butterfly wings.
I know that it's just started, so it's hard to see kind of where that's headed. But I'm really excited to see what does flourish from the program and how you come out of that cocoon.
Yeah, the one thing I will, don't get me wrong, I can talk very professionally and very goofy and vibey, but I'm having a hard time trying to keep my humor in check because I have a very dirty humor at times. So like, just like, oh, nope, don't make that joke. I'm really into like watching RuPaul's Drag Race, so I get a lot of funny, if not like offset humor jokes from that, and then also, just to be frank, I laugh a lot when I watch that show, and it speaks to my humor.
Yeah.
Then again, time and place.
Funny thing that you mentioned RuPaul. One of my favorite questions to ask is actually totally stolen from that show. Pretend I'm bringing out the picture of your 3-year-old self, and I would ask, Bret, what would you say to your younger version of yourself? What kind of advice would you give to little Bret?
Do not get a mullet at 11. You'll regret it. I swear. Okay, one thing. I say that first because I watched Joe Dirt when I was really young, and I was like, I want a mullet, Mom. And then I'm like, looking back at that now, like, oh dear God, you look like a brown Billy Ray Cyrus. That is not. So like, jokingly, yes, don't get a mullet. But if I were to be serious for a moment, I guess don't think too much. You don't worry too much. There's a whole lot to worry throughout your life, and you always worrying about little things that probably won't matter or don't matter later on. And don't shy away for showing your colors just because everyone else thinks it's weird. Because as a young man, you will begin to realize that there are things about yourself that you shouldn't hide, or you should at least deal with. And that'll save you so much grief and like so much time, because eventually there'll become a time in your life where you'll begin to kind of self-doubt, and I would like to say self-hate, but more like self-shame yourself and just let that go and just communicate. A lot of people don't communicate. I guess that's what I can say to my younger self.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And I always love asking this question because every single person who sits in that chair has something so different to say. And every time I'm like, you're right. That's a beautiful piece of advice. So thank you for sharing that. Now I have a question for you. What is one thing in your life that brings you joy? You know, like if you've had a rough week or a rough day, what is your go-to?
Well, I guess it would be a joy, but it's a hobby. I'm a video game player. Once I got into theater, I kind of stopped doing that so much. But since the pandemic, I've discovered my gaming habits again, and like just nostalgically, like playing old games that I've had before or played when I was a kid is very comforting. It does bring me some joy. But another thing I really, really, really enjoy is just I watch a bunch of comedies that make me laugh, and or if possible, I journal. If I can find a time to journal and say what I mean to myself, or if it's just a small little self-talk where I'm like, okay, Bret, you know, this is what's going on right now. It's okay. You've got to maybe just take a deep breath, inhale, exhale, bam. If you need, grab a coffee. If it's that bad, have a shot. Oh, another thing I'll add one more thing, sorry.
Please.
It may not be me drinking, but mixology. I love mixing like cocktails. That's one of my new things that I discovered about myself a few years ago.
Do you like to go out tasting or do you like being the one making them?
I like making them, but I also just to try things that I've never tried before. And like, to be fair, they don't interest me that much, but making gross cocktails sounds funny just for people reacting to it. Like, what was it? One time, one of my friends bought me a shot called a Prairie Fire, and oh my God, that was awful. But the reactions of everyone around the table was freaking hilarious. So, yeah, and actually, it's a funny thing you mentioned that what going on from that. This past weekend, I tried a makeshift shot out of, what is it, like cinnamon whiskey and like peppermint schnapps, which was like 100 proof, which is usually 50%. Oh, that was awful. The reaction of myself was like, it just was too much. The cinnamon part was okay, but everything else is just like, damn, what are you doing with your life? So like, but yeah, going back to the question, I'd say like stuff like that. Like I enjoy entertaining myself, maybe not as a means of distracting myself from what's really going on, but to say, okay, I needed that laugh. I've dealt with what I can deal with this, maybe go a little more into it. Maybe I'll journal. Depends on the level of, what would I call that? It depends on the level of stress or such. I usually get joy. I usually try to go towards joy because one thing is I'm always thinking and I can't turn off my brain, whether it be thinking about, okay, I got to do this. I have that bill to pay. I got to do this. I got to schedule this. And I usually don't use a planner because I forget about it in general, but I'm starting to be more open to the idea just because my schedule is now loading up a lot faster than I would have expected. Yeah. But that's just the life of an artist, I suppose.
It's always important to remember that as you start to get busy, you have to also, just like you schedule any kind of rehearsal or any kind of meeting that you're having, make sure you're scheduling yourself a bit of time just to rest, you know? Because I feel the same way where I need like cartoons to relax. And no matter what it is, the last thing I do in my day is put on one episode of Scooby-Doo and I can go to bed happy, you know?
That's pretty good. Oh man, Scooby-Doo. I used to watch the really old one from like the early 70s and stuff. So that's, wow. Sorry, I'm not trying to like, I'm not reading you or anything. I'm just saying like it's been a while since I like watched anything Scooby-Doo. All I could think of when you say Scooby-Doo is Rope Raggy. I'm just like, damn, okay.
It's a good time, I promise. Okay. Now, do you have a favorite treat?
It depends on what level size of treat I want to give myself. Because if it's a video game that I really want, I'll go and buy like a card. I could buy it online, or usually it's online because going to the store and buying a physical copy can be very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Or going to Chapters and spending like maybe 2 or 3 hours there looking for a single book that I want to buy. Or just going out for dinner because I've become sort of a foodie in a way. I never expected that of myself, where I'm just like, I want to try this food. That's delicious. So like, it just depends on the level of like, how do I want to treat myself? Like,
Totally.
and always like, especially too, when it comes to treating myself, it's like, should I do it? What level of treating myself can I do? Because it all depends on how much you're going to spend on treating yourself.
You said you're becoming a bit of a foodie. What's the best thing you've tasted in the last little while that you still remember?
Oh, God. I had, there's this restaurant actually nearby on White Avenue called Indian Fusion, and they have the tastiest Zira Aloo dish that is just wow.
All right. So as you continue to work on the ASMAP, is there like a dream project you'd love to start developing at all?
Well, the one thing is that one musical, I know there's a lot of tools for me to start with that, especially because there's a lot of people and, well, maybe not a lot of people, but both Sue and Morgan are just like, oh my God, especially Sue. It's like, I know people. I can help you with this. Let me help you. Well, I'm just paraphrasing, but I can tell by her excitement that she really wants to help me with this. And I'm totally open to that because I do not know how to write music. I can write a script in, characters and such, but like the other work, I'm going to have to learn probably through this program, but that's maybe something I'd like to get done because it is within the realm of theater. Whereas another dream project of mine might not necessarily be in for the theater medium, maybe through film or other stuff, but I'm just trying to see if it's worth it. And I have this one analogy when it comes to storytelling for myself. This is just for myself. Things that have to be told should be told, whether or not they seem comfortable or not comfortable. But if it speaks to your truth, then share it if you can. That being said, some things shouldn't be shared if you don't feel like they are. And I'm a type of person that likes to rip off the Band-Aid and bear all. It's like, rip off this Band-Aid. Oh, there's a really bad scab. But hey, look at it. Look at it. Okay, well, no, maybe not that. But like, you get what I mean.
Totally. I hear ya. And again, I'll just reiterate, I'm super excited to see what you work on and how you develop in this pilot program that's happening. Yeah, I think that's our time. Thank you so much for being a part of this, Bret, for just chatting with me, for letting me get to know you better, and for speaking openly and vulnerably about yourself and your journey. It's been a lovely time, and I really, once more, look forward to seeing your progression and seeing how you develop and how you come out of this cocoon that you're in right now. And we'll hear from you soon, I'm assuming.
I really hope so, because if you don't hear from me, then something is definitely wrong. It's like,
if you don't hear from me again, somebody just check up on me, okay?
Please do. I mean, check up on your artist friends. This is a PSA, okay? If they ain't talking, something is up.
And with that, I'm gonna log off. But thank you so much, and thank you all at home for listening. And we'll see you next time for another episode of In Process. Hey, pal.
Enjoying the conversation? Traversing the Azimuth is a brand new branch of Azimuth Theatre, aimed at connecting artists with a wider community, deepening mutual understanding, and getting to share each artist's process and journey.
If you would like to continue hearing these amazing stories, you can help out by going to azimuththeatre.com/sponsorship and sponsor Traversing the Azimuth. Your sponsorship will go straight into paying more artists to come and share what it means for them to be proudly in process.
We would also like to take this moment to thank the Canada Council for the Arts for their support in the pilot of this project.
For more information on Traversing the Azimuth, go to azimuththeatre.com/traversing. Woohoo!